Hello, everybody, and welcome to week number 9 of stage 3 of the Quake Pro League. My name's Ketchup, and I'm joined today by the one and only ZSX. And believe it or not, I feel like you kind of click your fingers, and this stage has kind of just gone through, really. It's been incredibly fast for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people. But the matches today get incredibly juicy, super high level, and ZSX, I'm ready to go.
Man, I'm really excited for today in particular. We're like right at the back end of the league now, where points really do matter for people, particularly down on that low end. And the schedule for today is also pretty tasty, as we have a lot of big boy matchups, a lot of matchups that are close in the leaderboard, down on that lower end in particular. So every map counts today.
So, on that note, we do have the global ranking, so we can find out where we're exactly sitting. And as you can see, it's kind of what we've been building towards, right? On that weekly basis, people like Rafa sitting pretty much completely uncontested. Kilson, one of the absolute top dogs. Razy, of course, is still up there. But as is normally the way before we start to look at players that make it into like seeding positions or a higher level of the stage finals, we always have to look at the players that are kind of within that relegation chopping block area, and that's where
Mm.
players like Spart1e have to worry. Hron, Zanaku, there's a lot more pressure on them now, and even if some of them are pretty much, look, there's nothing they can do at this point, they still have to give it their all to try and get any 3-0s they can, just for that mental boost, if anything.
Yeah, and listen to some of those names that you just piped up. Sparty and Hron, like two of the people that you would have easily expect to be well up in contenders for that 9th, 10th spot potentially. Sparty obviously coming a little bit later, has to claw a lot of ground up, but he's done exceptionally well. Sharon, not so much. Somebody we cite every single week. It feels like we're saying he can do better. And examples of last week when he did exceptionally well. So if he can do that again this week, I don't see any reason why he doesn't move up a few notches and claim his status as safe. But Sib, Effortless, and Zanaku all have a lot to play for, particularly Effortless and Zanaku both have winnable matchups today.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you talked about Sparty. We are moments away from seeing him. We should have the schedule coming up so we can go over what to expect today. We mentioned that there are a lot of matchups to really keep an eye on, just for, if anything, entertainment value.
Yeah.
Starting off with a really interesting one, Cypher versus Sparty. Now, Cypher has just been this complete story of success. The second he powerhoused his way into stage 2, really coming in from the later stage of the stage 1, and Sparty, who's looking better now than he did in stage 1. Zanaku versus Chain, Nosfer versus Effortless, and then Toxic versus Base, another heavy hitter. And then going on to part 2 of the schedule, Dewey versus Dramis, potentially a very close one there. Wenger versus Razy, the Maestro Gaming showdown. Cooler and Kilson, for crying out loud, and then Rafa versus Dahang. I think this second half is
Yeah.
very top heavy.
Really excited for that second half of the day. Even Dewey Dramis, I think, should be a pretty good matchup. And as we said, right at
Oh,
the
yeah.
very start, you can see how close all of these rankings are together for all players going up today. So some really, really exciting games. But if we look at the start of the day, as you said, Cypher versus Sparty. And I don't know, I think Sparty definitely is such a tough matchup for him. We just said he needs points and he's coming against Cypher and he's not immovable. I think that's the big thing for me, is that I definitely feel Sparty can claw his way maybe one map today, which should definitely pump him up a little bit more. Zeniku versus Chain. Zeniku's not been doing anywhere near as well as he would have wanted to for obvious reasons with adjusting. And the Chain matchup is quite a difficult one because Chain's momentum's definitely grown a lot since Poland, and it feels every week he's making more and more strides. And I would expect him to lay it down a little bit today. I don't know about you. And then Nosfer versus Effortless, as you said, Effortless can definitely pull away some points there, and he's going to need to. He really is going to need to. And then we move into the big matchups for the later half of the day, which don't count as much, but they're still really exciting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, even we talked about the potential competitiveness of Dewey versus Dramis. If I just bring up the global rankings, you can see Dewey sitting on 194 points and Dramis with 190. Like, they are this close.
Would you
So
have
any
said
kind of
that though,
advantage.
like at the start of this season, that Dramas would be sitting below Dewey, considering how much hype he was getting at the end of season 2, and I guess Dewey's slow and steady comeback? I just feel that Dewey for me is definitely the man on form, and we've been seeing so much more coming out of him than just his traditional expected defensiveness. Like he's been laying down the smackdown on some poor people.
Yeah, and especially considering the fact that he was not, I mean, in Dramas's position, he's kind of been there since the beginning. Dewey hasn't been. He had to make his way in. He relegated Sib, if memory serves, in the Stage 1 finals in Italy. And he's kind of just been just riding that wave since then. And he's in a decent position and can only hope to, continue to do better. But that's enough about what we're going over now. It's time for our first matchup. Spart1e versus Cypher. A great opportunity for Spart1e to get some points, get some of those big wins, because he has what it takes, like similar to Ohron, to really bring it to almost anyone. If we're going by a map basis, I think it's definitely fair to say that we think Cypher is the favorite here. But
Yes.
Spart1e is just not one of those players that you can consistently count out, and we should have the picks and bans coming up as well.
Yeah, no, Spotty's very exciting. Extreme highs as well as extreme lows. His play style is super aggressive, and he loves to push, and in doing so leaves himself vulnerable. And Cypher is one of those people that can exploit that. But at the same time, if Spotty does get ahead of steam and get that momentum, he's indomitable. Like, his timing is exceptional. His aim is also on point. And if he brings it out, then he's always going to put up a really great fight. And as for as great as Cypher is, I don't think he's ever hit the highs that we've seen in the past. He's still one of the best players in the world, and when he finds his stride, he's also probably one of the hardest players to beat, but I don't feel he hits it as often as he needs to or would like to. Like, he's still an amazing player, but I always feel there's more in the tank when it comes to watching Cypher. So but that's why I feel that Spotty has it and in to take a map today.
And it's just this element, having the Blood Covenant and then the Corrupted Keep, Ruins of Sarnath. They're very kind of traditional maps that you can grow to expect from these kind of players, especially the Ruins of Sarnath, which Cypher has been, he's been quite common on pretty much since the beginning of Quake Champions to now. It's a
Sure.
map that he's not shy of playing in. And then we look at the matchups while we load into the Blood Covenant. You've got the Anarchy versus the Ranger, Nyx versus Galena, and then BJ versus Visor. Again, there's really nothing here that's like, that's a crazy pick. It's just nice and traditional and straight to the point, which is also quite common, especially of someone like Spart1e, right? But Blood Covenant, we're starting with that one. The Anarchy versus the Ranger. Ranger, we've seen just wonderful things with that champion on this map. The ability to kind of go two places at once, particularly off map start, can be really useful. Does depend on the spawn that Spart1e gets. But the Anarchy, that's just going to be traditional fast movement, high octane, and in the hands of someone like Cypher, quite exciting to watch as well. Interested to see how this one goes.
Yeah, I think you just said that there's no two matchups you see today or two champion picks where you say, I feel that this one has a massive advantage of the other one. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, and it all comes down to personal preference. But as you say, moving into the first map.
Okay, so I'm going to check out Spart1e's POV first. Looks like he's going to get access to the rail immediately. And he's going to jump back towards that Mega and start himself off nice and chunky. Got to be a little bit careful for now because he only has a rail in hand. So he's trying to get access to a few extra weapons. Heavy machine gun in hand's good. Now the rocket. Pretty much Spart1e, it's time to party if he manages to catch Cypher. The rocket's naturally going to be a little bit hard to tell on Anarchy sometimes because of his air movement, but it's a game of who draws first blood.
As you say, the weaponry on this map is paramount. Getting the early rail is always key to maintaining a strong position, and trying to keep control of that high ground is always going to be the preference. But Spart1e does get some degree of timing on the Mega, although Cypher is delaying it for a very, very long time.
A chunky delay and should be perfectly in path to get access to that really final important weapon, right? So Cypher this whole time hasn't actually got himself a rail yet, and even now he's being careful, and a wonderful call out from Spart1e, using this as the green light to be aggressive. But no interest in a fight just yet, right? We're going to try and keep that positioning first, try and maintain any kind of control. There's not much of a split in between the two items, so there might be a nice old trade-off here. Oh, Cypher! Oh, Spart1e! That is a explosive start, ZSX.
It is, and that's one of the weaknesses, obviously, of the Anarchy, is that if you're caught any out of position, you're so vulnerable given your light champion status, and Spart1e takes full advantage of that with a great rocket to Dire Orb combo. And now can control that high ground. Cypher doesn't have a rail just yet, and so that's the one big thing that Spart1e, can try and take advantage of, as Cypher is working his way around the map carefully to try and get the necessary weaponry, because he doesn't have a rocket either. It's particularly vulnerable.
He has to make sure he doesn't take his many rails as he's comfortable with in that situation. Minimal damage really for Cypher in that position, and the important thing is that he's able to establish one of the major items for himself. So Spart1e's not going to be massively stacked up. He is going to get the Mega just then, and that light, of course, it's going to make him nice and healthy too. But looking at Cypher's weapons, right, he's got LG, which he got a little bit of that peppered damage from near heavy. He's got a rail. We've seen Cypher with rails tons of times before. And he's really able to make magic happen. But this is another one of those situations. LG in hand to try and catch the rocket jump, but not a lot of damage. Tri-bolt from Spart1e, a missed rail, which is Cypher's potential avenue to escape, but he's very weak. Spart1e trying to keep that element of control. Remember, he's got one frag up, so he's technically kind of the one that's dictating how things are going here.
And that's all he needs to do. There's no reason to overextend. With the range, you're going to find it difficult to fully chase down the Anarchy, so it's all about hitting your early rails and then pushing him with the Dire, which is exactly what he does. Cypher does back off nicely and hits him to the ground. Oh, amazing damage, as you say, with the rail.
That's that immediate turnaround. Spart1e chose to be aggressive, got that opening rail and thought it was a good opportunity to. You can understand the decision, but Cypher, he's one of those players that if he's in a position to hit that one rail, he must land to survive. You can often bet that he's going to hit it. But here comes more aggression from Spart1e. Going to try and push forward, but with only an LG in hand, it's difficult for him to get that range damage until he gets that rail. And it's still going to be Cypher running around again, controlling heavy, keeping Spy behind if he can. Some of that spam rocket towards rail. One of them absolutely beautiful. But both players, unfortunately, missing a couple of rails. Spart1e getting off light with that one. Could have been punished a lot harder than he was, but the question is, how does he recover? Cypher maintains the high ground, and that means he's going to maintain those important items. He has the Mega and Heavy in hand. He's going to have perfect timing on both of them. There's a wonderful split in between the two of them as well. If Cypher can get something now.
Yeah, but more importantly, he has that position and control on the rocket launcher, knowing that Spart1e doesn't have anything to push in for. But hearing Cypher drop gives Spart1e the one opportunity he needs to get up to get that rocket. It's a great play for Spart1e to hold out just there.
And it's good for him too, because he didn't take a lot of damage. Cypher's going to consistently use that, well, the delay that was in between the two items, and now he's got that free reign to control both of them, which does put Spart1e in a tricky position because he needs to get that damage first before he can really make anything happen. All right, he's going to look for one of those rails just off telly, but yeah, just can't get the angle. I'm liking the safe approach from both of these players so far, ZSX. Neither player being overly aggressive. They're being super cautious. But the objective, Mega, is he going to teleport to it? Oh, he waits a little bit. Hang on. This might be the green light. Damage, damage, damage. No, the rail. He misses the shot. This could be incredibly unfortunate. Cypher tries to escape, but he can't. Yeah, nowhere to hide.
No, and you're completely right. It feels far more traditional from the two players so far, as we usually see on this match, and that's partly because there isn't a real big discrepancy in the picks. Neither one have abilities that are particularly game-breaking in any way, nor are there huge discrepancies in stack or speed. So it is a very strategical start for both players. They're looking to pick each other off at range, and only then will they capitalize upon that advantage.
And Cypher was in a really kind of dire position. He's been put out of position for a good minute now, and it all came from that initial rail off the spawn, where he had no weapons, he had nothing to work with. The fact that he's able to undo some of that work here is impressive, because he's not really had any weapons to get what he needs. You know, Spart1e was keeping him away from the rocket, he was keeping him away from the rail, so Cypher's been forced to navigate these not so popular parts of the map. He's been able to get a whole bunch of stack, though. Really good stuff.
Yeah, but it also shows the respect and understanding of how they both want to play this map. The fact that it's taken Cypher nearly a minute to get a rail, still hasn't got a rocket launcher. Really respecting Spart1e's aim and positioning. But Cypher has worked himself into a good position, as you say, picked up a good deal of armor, has stolen away the Mega health, and now has everything he needs to pick a fight here up on bridge. But Spart1e does rocket jump up. Nice rocket from Cypher to get away.
There's a huge amount of time before Mega's going to spawn. Unlikely to be a saving grace if a fight breaks out now. Spart1e taking tons of damage by all means. He's going to be a done deal if we can get some wonderful damage with Cypher. No worries whatsoever. And that slow, calculated play led to another frag, making it 2-2. And that was the whole rule, right? Was what's the rush? We have plenty of time of the map left to go. If we just play this carefully, no need to push too hard. And now it's 2-2. Cypher's in a great position.
He is, but he was a small mistake there, not picking up the Mega, perhaps thinking Spart1e got it just before he died, but nevertheless, Spart1e doesn't have a rail or a rocket launcher still, so Cypher, his objective is to maintain that higher ground positioning and try and bully Spart1e, or punish him if he wants to get anything.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen Spart1e passively holding the tri-bolt more than we often see from a lot of players just coming down to not having access to steal. Wonderful steal! And Cypher completely caught.
And that's the strength of the Dire Orb and perfect timing. Push in with taking absolutely no damage, steal away the item. Amazing play from Spart1e.
It's also what it's done for him because Cypher's in he's got a rail to his credit, but he's in a funky position here because we were talking about time. Now that is something that is starting to run out, especially with just the sheer level of control Spart1e's holding. Heavy's just about to appear. Spart1e, understandably, is being quite cautious, but Cypher, he's hanging around near this light. It's taken him a long time to pick it up, and now he has finally got access to it.
And time is running out, however. He hasn't got a lot of health or armor.
Ooh. That's a 100 right there. More rockets. Dire Orb doesn't hit its mark. Cypher, no armor in hand, has to be incredibly careful in this fight. But they've disengaged just enough. We have had 3 hourglasses picked up there from Cypher, so he's in a position to at least try and get his injection back sooner rather than later. That Mega, 5 seconds away from spawning, might be the somewhat of a decider if they both go for it. Has that wonderful prediction, and he gets the rail for it. Great shot. Oh, speaking of predictions, that rocket almost connected. But hang on a minute, look at the stack difference.
Yeah, and injects up in 3 seconds as well, so this is the time for Cypher to push. Might wait around for this heavy and then call it the moment he wants to push on.
And here's that respect again. We've talked about it a bunch. Immediate opening rail and unreturned. 2 rails. Immediately swaps into the LG for some of that extra damage. The safety, Cypher. Full speed into the light. And that's just the movement right there. Straight onto the light armor. And he turns the tide with a click of his fingers. That was insane.
No, Spart1e. That was so unnecessary because all he had to do was backtrack and find a good, strong defensive position. He was... Even if he got that Mega, it was unlikely he was going to be able to kill Cypher. And now he's in a world of trouble. He's only got this rocket to work with.
Thankfully, though, due to that kind of defensive rocket jump to reach that point quicker, he's been able to save his skin a little bit. Access to the Heavy's going to go up potentially a long way in this fight, but he gets caught with the LG. Dire Orb, it's not going to do it! Right as Mega appears too! That is a heartbreaker.
And that is the perfect example of what I was talking about in terms of Spart1e's aggression leaving him vulnerable. The last 2 plays he's made have been entirely validated, but at least the first one, way too risky. I fully understand the second one, trying to make something happen, but yeah, I mean, over-aggression, getting punished by Cypher. But all in all, I was hugely impressed by the way in which Spart1e played that map, and it felt super traditional. I really enjoyed the back and forth strategy from the 2, the respect coming out, and some really great shots as well.
And they played the whole map almost dead even by statistics. Their damage was like 100 apart. When we look at the Megas and the Heavies that were taken, it was like a 1 difference each way, almost a completely even split. It just came down to those final decisions, which, you know, if you're going to have that kind of game plan where you play off of being incredibly patient, incredibly slow, and it's going to be a map that comes down to not many frags and 1 or 2 of them in between. That kind of even split, I think, is quite interesting to see. But that was the historically calculated map. Now we're going to be going into the Corrupted Keep, which could be extremely different.
One would expect it to be. As you say, it was a low-scoring back-and-forth map, whereas this one expects more sparks coming out. It was a warm-up map, let's say that. And I think Corrupted Keep is a great example of... It's a great separator. There's no rail, and so when you're on the back foot, it really does show you how strong you can be in terms of your overall dueling capability, because you can't get away from your opponent. You're always under constant pressure. There's really no fallback positions, so you have to play perfectly positioning to keep in the game. And this matchup, again, there's not a huge difference between the 2 in terms of Galena and Nyx. Nyx is a little bit more unorthodox on this map, but still super strong no matter where you play her, whereas Galena is one of the traditional meta picks on this map because you can set up really strong areas with your totems, and just in combat anyway, they're amazingly powerful. So
you always kind of just look at Nyx. There's definitely that kind of like potential glass cannon aspect coming out of this because, I mean, we've seen Corrupted Keep a million times already. It is an aggressive map that can snowball significantly, right? How many times do we see both players? They'll get minimum like 10 frags each, and it just continues to go, or someone gets completely stomped because it's spawn off spawn off spawn. You just kind of look at the utility of Nyx. There's going to potentially be some kind of survivability there, although she has a tiny stack. Just if you get caught in a bad spot, that Ghost Walk being that kind of get out of jail free card. We'll see how useful it's going to be here because there's a lot of different angles you can go. So you've got to make that hard read where you think she's going to reappear. But Cypher, he's got a plan, and we'll see if it follows through.
Yeah, and the key on this map in general is making sure you have strong defensive position for your rockets if your opponent wants to push, but also maximizing the damage at range. I think that's one of the areas that's so difficult to do, and not a lot of players have perfect. But if you can do it, and you can keep your opponent's stack low, that's when you really become in for strong mid-game battles.
So I'm going to be checking out Spart1e first. Just got the magic weapon in hand. The rocket launcher's ready to rock. And he's got an LG too. So in terms of weapons, he's good to go.
And he knows that Cypher wants this weaponry. So holding out to here or use that information about where Cypher's going and what he's doing. And pushing behind though, catching Cypher completely off guard, forces an early Ghost Walk, exactly what he needs to do.
But when we look at the stack, it's the difference of armor, but the Mega, and I love the optimization. The fact that he drops down the totem, or sorry, gets the totem health first, and then gets the Mega, just cut short that cooldown at the same time. But that's an opening rocket. Certainly hurt, but he's answered back with a wonderful SSG. And that should be just in time to get maybe one of those totems. 5 seconds. Although it's going to heal him up, it might not heal him up enough if a fight breaks out anytime soon. So Cypher, thankfully off the spawn, has to get some of those weapons first. So he's not really in a position to get anything done yet. And just like that, Spart1e has a nice amount of stack and the light armor. That's going to help him out.
Yeah, but Cypher did enough to keep Spart1e low and off the spawn. Great use of the Ghost Walk, and he steals away the heavy as well. Unfortunately, gets bounced through the teleports, but he should have enough to take down Spart1e here. He just doesn't want to take too much damage in the process. So he's biding his time. And a full one to finish him off.
Looking at that one from Spart1e's point of view made me feel a certain way, I think, but yeah, that was well played from Cypher. That opening Ghost Walk as well for the aggression. There is the extra element of it, those kind of ambushes that you can play. No fear from Cypher. And unfortunately, that second rocket, although he had to bank on it being immaculate, wasn't enough to force a trade.
No, and already we've seen the full utility from both champions coming out in one way or another to earn each other frags. And really enjoy when that happens.
It's just one of those moments where we've seen the totems used in the middle of fights to keep them alive. Wonderful optimization from Spart1e where it's totem into Mega. The Ghost Walk used both defensively, forced out, but also to spring a trap to get an attack that Spart1e might not have been looking for near heavy. That's a huge amount of LG. Something that Cypher is not afraid. They're both going to disengage and get a little bit of that stack back. Spart1e in really one of the best rooms to get it back. No rocket damage either. Maybe I spoke too soon. That one certainly didn't tickle. But look at who's going to be able to disengage better. Cypher in a great position, especially with that Mega that's just spawned. Totem's going to connect, which is, if anything, information for Spart1e. He has 2 totems up, so one more of those and he'll be overstacked.
Good use of aggressive Ghost Walks from Cypher so far. Something that not a lot of players always feel comfortable in doing, but when you pull it off, it really can swing fights and games into your favor.
I mean, timing is key.
But timing's off there, as you say.
Yes, almost. I think I'm Speak of the Devil, perhaps. I was just about to talk about Cypher's wonderful timing near heavy when he used it, but...
Well, that's one of the things that Spart1e always does well, is that his timing is normally absolutely perfect. And so you, when you're playing against a player like that, need to make sure yours is always on perfect, as they have this engagement over by heavy. But Cypher doesn't hit the shots.
Yeah, and actually, we talk about the use of the totems. He has, in fact, been able to get himself 3 of them good to go. And as long as he holds sway over the heavy, the fact that he has all these totems ready to rock is going to make it kind of tricky in these fights. He has full control over the items, which means that Spart1e's not going to be shy of going up the jump pad because he has less to fear. Beautiful SSG. Ouch. And it's just in time for a totem.
Yeah, that is such a good read by Spart1e to push out aggressive, and the fact that he had the shotgun out as his weapon showed how much prediction he had there.
I'm really nervous about that stack. It's going to be really hard for Cypher unless he can get rid of some of these totems, because Spart1e has full control over the map, especially controlling that heavy. And he has all 3 totems ready. So that kind of mega on-demand effect is going to make these fights
nice.
answered back with some fantastic rockets. A little bit of hesitation there from Spart1e on the light, just in case Cypher was over there, but he hasn't been able to get down a single totem. He's been able to heal up from the totem before he goes in. Heavy was taken away, which might be the decider, but he drops down another one. So much health has gone in his favor. And because he'd actually dropped down the totem, it had despawned the one that was in that corner, allowing Spart1e to keep the 3 totems on the map.
Finally, Cypher clears up one of the totems. 2.
5-minute warning.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that ghost walk.
Yeah. Not afraid to use it, but he has been low for a good minute. Spart1e's doing an amazing job of just gobbling up all items at this point in time, making life incredibly difficult for Nyx, because when that happens, you just need to keep plus back. Can't afford to engage, but this is exactly what he needs to do. Play the angles, play the corners, get that chip damage in.
I'm really loving the that play too, just how much time the totems are wasting. While Spart1e had that situation, there was no fight, and he ran and just kind of soaked up that heavy. Cypher was having to kind of go out of his way just long enough to get rid of those totems that he wasn't able to contest a single thing that Spart1e was soaking up. And it's consistently keeping Cypher in a really awkward position here. A bunch of LG, and that's going to be enough. A comfortable stack for Spart1e, who's able to now pressure that Ghost Walk use. You can actually see the Ghost Walk really paying its dues, but not able to do anything. This should be a death sentence. Even if that wasn't a suicide, 100% Spart1e was going to finish that one off. So Cypher, not much he could do there. The second the Ghost Walk was used, and Spart1e just took the mega. Nice little prediction rocket, but hang on, talking about good rockets, that one was even better.
Yeah, you can see what the game plan there from Cypher was. As soon as he used that Ghost Walk, he realized he had messed up, but stayed around to deal maximum damage. Hit 2 full directs for dying, which put him in the absolute perfect position to follow up with that frag. But now, once again, his timing is just a little bit off. And Spart1e's capitalizing upon those little mistakes, because Cypher's in and around the items, but just a half second off each time. And that's enough to causing him to...
It's a combination, too, of Spart1e's timing being immaculate. I mean, I can't recall the last time, besides one situation near a light. Oh, hang on, ambush. There we go. Hello. But yeah, except for one light armor in Ailgun room, that's the only time he didn't have timing on something. Everything else has been perfect. This is scary, though. Fight's going to break out, and Spart1e does not have enough stack. Has to really bank on hitting some decent rockets.
No, but you can see, again, how quickly Cypher's been able to nearly tie this game up. Just the power of Corrupt to keep...
Oh, that one hurt. Oh, he's swapping to the machine gun. Maybe a little bit too early, I feel. And, oh, good rocket. There's been some good rockets come out from Spart1e, for sure. Yeah, minimal punish damage. Towards the light. A nice call, actually, from Cypher to say that I think you're going to go for that light armor, but not really anything to hammer home about because of just the return damage coming out from Spart1e. By all accounts, do not want to jinx it. I know Commentator's Curse is a thing, but Spart1e in a great position here on the later stages of Corrupted Keep.
Yeah, now he just needs to play carefully. Not go through any corridors without checking it first. Quite happy to man-fight Cypher in these mid-range battles because you're always going to deal with fairly equal damage, and if you've got the stack advantage, you're generally going to come out on top. And again, Cypher just not in the right position to capitalize upon Spart1e's slight mishap in positioning, and he fails at that point. And now the game is slipped out of really reach for Cypher with only 1:40 left.
Yeah, even though we're in Corrupted Keep, there is always going to be a point of no return, and with the momentum that Spart1e has built up here, and the fact that he's 6 frags in the lead with 1.5 left to go, by all accounts, we should be there. He's going to be nice and aggressive. A little bit of traded point-blank damage there from Cypher. Uses the downtime of the Ghost Walk to just get some free stack. And now Cypher, I mean, he has to run away with his tail between his legs, right? There's nothing he can do here. He's going to try and soak up some of those lights to get away, but here comes that heavy machine gun damage. Where you going? An aggressive Spart1e looks to finish it. He is going to go down, but yeah, that's all she wrote here.
And it is too little too late. I mean, the story of this game for me was that Spart1e just played pinpoint methodical Quake. His timing was on point, and every time Cypher had a slight mishap in that, Spart1e was in position to capitalize upon it.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't. I don't think I could point out a single mistake that Spart1e made on this entire map.
No.
There was literally one time, I don't even think it mattered, where he was on a light and he was waiting around and it wasn't there. That's it. If I were nitpicking, that's it. But who cares?
It's kind of the same as last map, and this is what I was saying. Like when you have the rail as a fullback, defensively it's a lot easier. But without that on this map, Spart1e was able to make sure his pressure and control counted a lot more. And it was last map. It was only one mistake that really cost him the map. And this time he didn't make any. So he's playing exceptional Quake.
Yeah, I spent pretty much the entire map looking at it from Spart1e's POV.
Yeah.
He's going to get the final frag, and it'll be, I'm doing it myself. GG's, though, from Spart1e, absolutely. But this is always really why when Spart1e is brought up in conversation, especially in like a competitive sense, it's always so hard to count him out. And I'm actually looking at his damage too. That I know a huge part of that came down to the Spart1e just being able to soak up more damage thanks to totems and stuff like that. But it was just more impactful. It was the sort of squishy nature of Nyx that made those mistakes that Cypher was making much more costly. The Ghost Walk, even though it's definitely fair to say it worked a lot more in the start of the game than it did by the end. By the end, there were a lot of Ghost Walks coming out that were just that microsecond too early or late, whatever the case may be, where Cypher, he appeared a couple of times perfectly and he stole an item, he got a frag, wonderful. But Spart1e just had such perfect timing from start to finish that it
was that timing that allowed him to be so aggressive and to take such more damage, because he knew the second the item was up, he knew how much damage he could take getting into the item and how much damage he could do in return. And so it was always a worthwhile trade for him to steal that item away whilst taking a hell of a lot of damage, because then he could regroup, get his stack back, and then put pressure on the next item. And so as he was taking items, he was always taking exponential amounts of damage from Cypher, but because Cypher didn't have a stack, Cypher was the one that was actually losing out in those trades. And so yes, Cypher was doing an immense amount of damage, but without the items to fall back on, Spart1e was just bullying him. And so yeah, the simple lesson from Cypher on that map is he just needs to get his timing a bit more fluid and a bit more on point, because that's the only thing Cypher had against him that map.
Well, our final map, Ruins of Sarnath, matchup-wise, we have the BJ versus the Visor. Visor is going to be on the side of Spart1e, though, which I think could be quite beneficial for him. He's been playing incredibly smart today, and Visor is just so often a champion where, you take an already talented Quake player and stick piercing sight on top, and it's a bit of a match made in hell, I think. But this is really why when I didn't get a chance to elaborate earlier because I went off on a bit of a tangent. But when we talk about Spart1e being one of those players that you can never truly count out of competition, I mean, he's just made it 1-1 versus Cypher. Like that's not an easy task, especially not even in just the manner of which he took that map. He took that map convincingly through just his own natural skill, right? Like that's why he's held in such high esteem. Interested to see if he can make it a 2-1. This would be a great result for him.
I definitely think he can. He's been playing great. This is what we said in the start. We felt he had it in him, and I think we've been proven right. Spart1e's been playing great, but also it just feels that Cypher needs to find another gear, and that's what I feel quite a lot watching him. There were so many moments of greatness and glory in that previous map. He just doesn't string it together to kind of that perfect rounded package, or not as regularly as he used to. So it always feels like there's more in the tank, and that's what I mean from that. But Spart1e, if he plays solid, Visor fits his style so far, gives him that extra douse of information to make sure he gets map control and capitalize upon his stack advantage. Cypher could find it hard, but at the same time, with the rail to fall back on, it is Ruins, it's a much more expansive map. You have more opportunities for the defense.
Well, we're loading in. We'll find out if Spart1e can get one of those big results he's been looking for. Piercing sight is going to get popped, and that's some immediate information. But without a rail in hand, a little bit harder for Spart1e to kind of punish that. And Mega's going to get soaked up, but not before a rail connects. And that's the kind of rail that you don't really like. Right as you've taken an item, it kind of feels bad. But the immediate dual wield, tricky for Spart1e because he only has an LG. He just did not have the weapons to take that. And Cypher just full speed ahead. Ooh. for
BJ is always such a strong pick if you can catch your opponent off guard. I felt that Nyx wasn't the best pick on the previous map just because you're so vulnerable, whereas BJ can hold his own at all points.
Yeah, this is a really tricky position for Spart1e. And again, it come from that spawn rail. The moment he appears, didn't really have much bearing over where Cypher was and just eats a rail on the backside. He's having to be patient here. He can't even pop piercing sight because Cypher, he hears a whiff of anything and he's going to go all guns blazing. Spart1e has to use some of this time now to safely recuperate. Lick his wounds. He's got a basic stack back up and some information on where Cypher is. He's slowly but surely getting access to his weapons as well. He's now got LG and rails, still lacking a rocket launcher, but if he can get some of those opening rails unreturned, he's in a good position. The danger is that dual wield's just come back, and Spart1e can't afford a fight with this stack. He just won't win.
No, and that is one of the weaknesses of the Visor, obviously, is you lack the maneuverability of other champions in the pool, and so if you're caught, you are dead most of the time. So, the Spart1e, as you say, has done a good job of weaseling his way around the map into a strong position, but Cypher catches him just a little bit for a moment, and Spart1e is going to go down here up on this Mega as he is too early for it. Not having the timing he needed, having to risk that play. 2-0 to Cypher.
It was that early element of control that Cypher built up from that wonderful frag near LG that it's just put Spart1e out of touch, almost, because while he's having to play really slowly and allows Cypher to cycle around the map, taking pretty much whatever he wants, these small pieces of information potentially have been lost to Spart1e, and now he's having to spend this whole time not only trying to get himself back into the map, but just trying to get some of that information back on track too. He's forced into a difficult position again. That dual wheel popped again to absolutely delete and shred, and Cypher just maintains control, and he maintains all the timing.
I mean, it feels to me that Spart1e's playing a little bit too slow, and when you're completely hidden from the map, you give your opponent free reign, all items, all weaponry, and position, you're always going to come off second best. So, definitely feel that, yes, Spart1e's not in control by any stretch of the imagination, but he needs to be more proactive as he's doing now. Trying to hit some damage from range, just to keep Cypher second-guessing himself.
Ooh, as long as these rails hit their mark like this as well, Cypher has nothing to worry about. Spart1e only on 75 HP, so he has to be kind of careful, especially with this light. The light's going to give him somewhat of a fighting chance, and the piercing sight's given not only information, but he heard the heavy collected too, so he's going to have a little bit of timing there. But that's not going to help his stack trouble. Not able to hit some of those rails either. He's trying as hard as he can to give us a little of his hitbox away. Yeah, none of those rails returned, but what I'm worried about is that another miss. He's just not getting any damage at SX, and that worries me if we're going to see a fight soon.
No, he definitely needs to hit damage, but at least he's trying to get onto the map now, which he wasn't doing for the first 2 minutes. But this time, Cypher's timing is spot on, reading Spart1e like a book in all situations, and having the aim to follow it up. Going to get painful for Spart1e.
Had to pop his piercing sight fresh off spawn, just to make sure he's safe to do what he wants to do. Only has access to a rocket launcher though, so if Cypher wants to swap to a better weapon from this range, there really isn't much Spart1e can do to fight back. A rocket, I mean, what's he going to do? Rocket in hand, Cypher smartly went up and get the vertical shots on him. You have to hit really miracle rockets to get any damage in that position.
Yeah, and Ruins is a really difficult map to get back into the game once your opponent has a lockdown on items, because they're so easy to control and protect that you need to take some riskier plays. And there's a couple of strategical options. One is trying to play this rail game. The other one is trying to take up strong defensive rocket positions in and around this corridor here where the Mega is, because you can catch your opponent in guard. He manages to sneak away the Mega, but at what cost? He's taken so much damage. If he can get the heavy as well, then it might be worth it, but he hasn't done enough to Cypher just yet to stall that momentum.
Oh, and here comes Cypher immediately back where he came from, just to take care of business and then back to where he was doing. But, oh, a bad, not particularly amazing spawn for Spart1e with an LG in hand, and that's it. Cypher just had to hit one rail there, and he did. I mean, of course he did. A much better map for Cypher, and it's really insane to just see how much momentum was built from such an amazing start, right? It came down to Spart1e playing incredibly slow after getting that first frag. He had to, well, in his position, give up a lot. And it's just given Cypher this perfect reign across the entire map. He's stolen away the heavy, and he hasn't quite lost his life for it yet. However, I think yet might be the magic word, but wait! Here's a rail. Oh no! Answered back. It's still not free. Both players missed their shots, and he goes down. Near teleporter. That was potentially an opportunity to get back into the game, and it just slipped through his fingers.
But it is now an 8 frag difference. It's more than an uphill battle for Spart1e at this point. Cypher is unrelenting with his rails.
He's now going to establish heavy. One of the first times we get to see Spart1e kind of just zip in and out and take one of the items, but what's it going to cost him? Piercing sight, hot. Secures himself a rail. Now, I don't want to never say never, but it's still going to be hard because even though he got a frag, he's had to stop. He's had to try and wait for the Mega to come back. That is a really important rail to land, though. He is going to wait a little bit. I loved waiting first just to try and make sure he can tank an extra rail just in case. But he gets caught dropping down. Has to catch the rhythm of it. Punishes the missed rail with an LG. Nice. Spart1e, there should be plenty of light health up here to get just an inch of a fight back.
No, and there is still a good amount of time in this map, and as we've seen from Cypher already, Spart1e maintains control of the items. He's going to find, well, at least Cypher's going to find it difficult to keep that lead. He does have the option of being ultra defensive because he has a 6 frag padding, but as we saw in the first few minutes of this map, if he doesn't maintain some proactivity, Spart1e will just run over him, and that's exactly what he's doing. Setting up early for this heavy with the dual wield, and we can see the power of the BJ coming out.
And we were talking about the chance to bring it back and the potential there, but with a frag like that and the time spent that Spart1e has to just get some weapons, get access, to even the smallest things like doubling back to get a light armor, that's all taking a lot of time. And now he's starting to run out of that time, especially now. That rail may as well have sealed the deal because this is a large map. It takes a while to get your resources back, and as long as Cypher just completely cycles around on top of hitting rails in those positions, just being in the perfect position, right? This is pretty much it from this stage. Cypher just did so much work early on. Spart1e's had to play from behind from like that 0 to 1 second mark. It was all over. Now a bit of gauntlet just in case. Don't need it, and we're in one of those positions now. So it's like Spart1e has to just try and get any frag he can, which means his movement's going to be a lot more predictable. And it's unfortunate that it ended this way.
It is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, this is exactly what I was talking about when it comes to Cypher and this matchup in general. In that this map felt like Spart1e didn't have a chance. But the last map, he walked all over Cypher. Yes, that was partly the Nyx pick, but it was just the way in which Cypher didn't play as crisply as he did in this map, and the rail was a big factor in it. But when I said Cypher had more than a tank, he showed us he does. So it's just consistency is a key thing with Cypher in my mind. Whereas Spart1e definitely needs to be more proactive on the defense. In the first 2-3 minutes of this map, he just allowed Cypher free reign, by which point the game was beginning to get out of hand. We saw that as Spart1e began to put more pressure on, the game evened up, and we saw how Cypher regained his lead, or regained control, should I say, in maintaining a defensive position, strong positioning, aggressive position, should I say, on the heavy. That's something we didn't see from Spart1e at all. So there is some definite learnings and areas that Spart1e can think about for the next round, but it's a joy to watch Cypher when he plays like this.
And you can just see it from Spart1e's point. It's just that he's definitely given up at this point, and can't say I blame him. We hit that point of no return a fair while ago, and it's like you said, it's just come down to Cypher. And the rail has had a major factor for both of the maps that Cypher was able to really steal away. Just some free. Oh, okay. There's the ring out. You know what, mate? I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
Yeah,
but
obviously, not having a rail really changes the dynamic of the way in which a map is played. And we can see that it is such a powerful weapon for Cypher in general, but good games come out.
Yeah, the GGs come out. No surprise, really. Well played to Cypher, who's going to take it 2-1 over Spart1e today, but he certainly had to fight for it. That was a one-sided final map, but it's just when Cypher comes out to play, just look, the fact that he had so much more damage, hit a ton of rails, and the control too. Only one, I could just see there, 3 heavies went into the hands of Spart1e over the course of the entire 10 minutes, and it's like how consistently Cypher was just able to, especially in the early stage of the map, just run rings around the whole map and just pretty much soak up whatever he wants. Spart1e's trying to just look for that one opportunity to just get that one rail or whatever. But even when he found the damage, a fight would break out in a position where he was uncomfortable. The BJ dual wield comes out as well. And it just came down to both fundamentally very strong play there from Cypher. And then when the fight happened, I mean, the dual wield makes a huge difference too. It was just kind of
100%.
the perfect combination, really.
Yeah, and you could feel that Cypher was a little bit frustrated from map 2, and just went back to basics with Ruins. It's definitely an easier map to lock down in terms of rotation, and when you get a strong lead, you can capitalize upon that. And Cypher just made sure he had perfect timing, good positioning, and as you say, if a fight broke out that he wasn't feeling confident in, he always had that fallback in the dual wield to push him over the edge. And then when he found his groove, as Cypher does, he began to hit everything, and your life becomes a misery. So it wasn't Spart1e playing particularly bad. It was just Cypher being a bit angry and turning up to play.
I think so too. And I spent actually a lot of that map looking at it through Spart1e's POV as well. And it's just seeing how struggle it was for him when he's fresh off the spawn, and you can really tell that Cypher has always kind of just got that air of where he is, whether he's listening out for it, whether he just caught him somewhere. And it was like Spart1e just rarely had like the right weapons to work with, and he'd get a rail, but a rail's only going to do so much when you've got everything and a huge stack and dual wield ready to go. It's just the pressure.
It's the hardest part of professional dueling, and it's easy for us to sit here and say, yeah, well, Spart1e could have done X, Y, and Z. Like, why is he playing so slow?
But with hindsight, when we have X-ray and he doesn't.
Yeah, but when you're under the pressure, as you say, and the Cypher's got all the weaponry and the armor and position, like there is very little options for you a lot of the time. So it looks worse than it can be. But it was a dominating performance, and I just wished that Cypher could come out every map of every week we watch him.
It's normally what people expect. And I mean, by no stretch is it to talk about his lack of success in Pro League, because he's done, this is without question his most successful run in competitive Quake Champions. And it is wonderful to see. And I really think there is a sort of redemption arc coming out throughout the course of Pro League for Cypher. And he just continues to get those Ws and he continues to impress. While at the same time, Spart1e was able to seize a dominant map win, which is enough to remind everyone why he's in Pro League in the first place. And I do think Spart1e's looking better now than he did in stage 1 for sure. So that was our first matchup of the day. Up next, it's going to be Zanaku versus Chain. Potentially a bit of a mountain to climb to Zanaku, and quite a test, I think, to see if he can get the job done. We're going to go for a quick break and set up the next series. This is week number 9 of stage 3 of Quake Pro League. Don't go anywhere.